Story number 1, The Last Table. I used to work the night shift at a Pizza Hut on the edge of town, one of those stand-alone buildings with the old red roof that still smelled faintly like the 90s. We were open until 3 a.m. on weekends, and business was usually dead after midnight except for the occasional delivery or drunk college kids. I liked the quiet hours, honestly. There was something peaceful about the hum of the soda machine, the low murmur of the radio, and the sound of mop water sloshing in the bucket. You could hear every creak of the building, every clink of dishes. I used to wipe the same counter 3 or 4 times just to stay awake. It was during those hours, after midnight, that I started noticing something strange. There was a booth in the far back corner of the dining area. Table 17. Same brown cushion. Same chipped laminate table as the rest, but something about it always felt colder. Not physically, just different. I thought maybe I was imagining it at first. Then he started showing up. A man, probably in his late 40s, always wearing a black hoodie, hood up, even in summer. He'd come in a little after 2 a.m., like clockwork. Never said a word. Just nodded once at whoever was working and went straight to table 17. At first, we assumed he was homeless. He never ordered anything. Just sat there for about an hour, staring straight ahead, never looking at his phone, never bringing a book, not even glancing at the menu. Just sat, hands folded on the table, eyes fixed on the kitchen door. No one really bothered him. My manager, Carlos, was pretty chill about it. Said, as long as he wasn't bothering anyone, we let it slide. I started calling him the last table guy in my head, because he always came when everything else was done. The ovens were off, the floors were mopped, chairs were flipped, except his booth. What got under my skin wasn't that he showed up. It was how he seemed to know when no one else would be around. I worked a few nights when we had late diners hanging around till 2:30 or so. On those nights, the guy never came in, not once. But the minute we were alone again, just me and the silence, there he was. At first, it was just weird. Then it got heavy. I remember one night in particular, I was sweeping near the soda machine, just killing time, and I glanced back at him. He was already seated. I hadn't even heard the door open. No chime, no footsteps, just there. He was watching the kitchen like usual, but this time, his head slowly turned toward me. I froze. He didn't blink, didn't nod, just stared. I must have held my breath because when I finally looked away, I felt a sharp rush of air in my lungs, like I'd been underwater. I tried to laugh it off, told myself he was probably just zoning out, but it left this weird taste in my mouth like copper. After that, I avoided looking at him too long. A few weeks passed like that. I started dreading those late shifts, not because anything happened, nothing ever did, but because of how he made me feel. Like I was part of something I didn't understand. Like I was being watched, even when he wasn't there. Then I got curious. Stupidly curious. One night after he left. He always left at exactly 3 a.m. I decided to check the security footage. I went into the office, pulled up the feed, and rewound to when I thought he arrived. There was nothing. I fast-forwarded, 2:15, 2:30, 2:45, still nothing. But I knew he was there. I'd seen him. So I scrolled to 3 a.m. when he always left, and there he was, leaving. But the footage never showed him entering. He just appeared at the table. And when he walked out, the door did open. The chime rang. The door swung wide. but no entry, no arrival, just an exit. I didn't know what to make of that. Maybe a glitch? Maybe I missed something? But it kept happening. Every time I checked, he was only visible when he left, never came in. One night I asked Carlos about him, tried to keep it casual. Hey, that guy who sits at 17 all the time, do you know who he is? Carlos was wiping down a tray and paused just a little too long before answering. No idea, he said, but he's been coming for years. Years? Carlos nodded. Yeah, since before I started managing. Some of the older staff used to say he's, well, never mind, doesn't matter. He doesn't cause trouble. He didn't finish his sentence, but the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. He was scared too. The next week, I got stuck on a double shift, lunch through close. By the time it was 2 a.m., I was bone tired and barely staying awake. I sat at the front counter, eyes heavy, trying not to doze off. Then the air changed. That's the only way I can describe it. The room got still, like all the sound had been sucked out. The hum of the fridge, the low buzz of the lights, all gone. I stood up slowly and looked toward the back. There he was, already seated. Except this time, he wasn't staring at the kitchen. He was staring at me. I didn't move, didn't speak. He slowly raised one hand and pointed to the seat across from him. A gesture, an invitation. Every part of me screamed to stay behind the counter, but my legs moved anyway, like they weren't mine. I walked down the aisle, past empty tables and cold booths until I stood in front of table 17. Up close, he didn't look threatening. He looked tired, skin pale, hands thin, nails a little too clean. His eyes were a dull gray, like the color had drained out of them years ago. I sat down. We didn't speak, just sat across from each other in silence. I could hear my own breathing, could feel my heart thudding against my ribs. Then he leaned in and whispered something. I didn't catch it. It wasn't words, just sound, like wind through dry leaves, but it filled my ears, pressed against my skull, made my stomach twist. When I blinked, he was gone. Just gone. No sound, no movement. The booth was empty. The seat across from me was cold. I stood up, stumbled to the front, and locked the doors. That was my last night at Pizza Hut. I quit the next morning. Carlos didn't ask why. I never told anyone, not really. What could I say? That a man who never ordered food, never spoke, and never entered through the front door, sat with me in silence and whispered something that left a cold pit in my chest ever since. I still dream about him sometimes. Same booth, same stare. But now, he doesn't point at the seat across from him. He points at the one I'm already sitting in, and I always wake up before I hear what he says next. Story number 2. No one ordered this pizza. I used to do late-night deliveries for Pizza Hut back in 2021. I was 23, broke, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid okay, and I liked driving around at night. Less traffic, less small talk. The store closed at 3 a.m. on weekends. I usually worked until close on Fridays and Saturdays since the other drivers hated the overnight runs. I didn't mind them. Most of the time it was just me, one cook in the back, and the shift manager, who usually spent the last 2 hours glued to his phone. The streets would go quiet around 2:30. That's when the world felt soft, almost unreal. Street lights glowing like tiny moons, radios humming low, my tires sliding over wet pavement after a light rain. The kind of silence that makes you listen to your own breathing. One Friday night in October, I was getting ready to clock out. It was slow, dead actually. I'd just come back from my last delivery and was wiping down the steering wheel of my car when the receipt printer beeped. I walked back inside, expecting some last-minute online order. The ticket slid out slowly. A large pepperoni pizza, cash on delivery. I glanced at the address. It was a motel about 15 minutes away, off the highway. Not one of the nice chains either. This was the kind of place people rented by the hour, if you know what I mean. I'd delivered there once before, but only during the day. The area felt different after dark. Still, I shrugged and grabbed the pizza from the warmer. The cook gave me a look. "You sure you want to go out this late?" I smiled. "One last run. I'll be back in 20. He just nodded and turned back to cleaning the oven trays. The roads were empty. A light fog had rolled in, softening the red of the brake lights and blurring the edges of the buildings. I kept the window cracked a little. Cold air slid in and filled the car with that early fall smell, wet leaves and exhaust. When I pulled into the motel lot, I noticed something weird. All the rooms were dark. Not a single window lit up, not even the office near the front. The neon sign buzzed faintly, flickering vacancy in red and blue. I parked near room 9, the address printed on the receipt. No number on the door, just peeling paint and a rusted-out light fixture. I grabbed the pizza, stepped out, and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. I waited. The air felt still, heavy. I was about to turn around when I heard it. A soft click. The door creaked open about an inch, just enough for me to see the edge of darkness inside. No one spoke. I said, "Pizza delivery?" Silence. Then something slid across the floor. I heard it, the scratch of paper against old tile. I looked down. A $10 bill. It stopped just behind the threshold, not enough to reach. I crouched, hesitated, then reached for it. The second my fingers touched the bill, the door closed, not slammed, just shut. Software, quiet. I stood up slowly, heart thudding. I didn't know what to do. I knocked again. No answer. I called out, "Hey, you didn't get your pizza." No reply. Just as I was turning to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from the store. "Order completed. Good job. Come back safe." I didn't reply. Just got in the car and drove back. The cook was gone when I returned. Only the manager remained, scrolling through his phone at the counter. I handed over the receipt and the cash. He glanced at it. "You forgot to give them the pizza?" I blinked. "Number, I didn't. They didn't take it." He frowned. "Then why is it marked complete?" I didn't have an answer. Neither did he. I threw the pizza in the trash, clocked out, and went home. That should have been it. But the next night, around the same time, 2:45 a.m., the printer beeped again. Same order. Large pepperoni. Cash on delivery. Same address. Same room. I stared at the receipt. The manager raised an eyebrow. "Deja vu?" I didn't want to go. Something felt off, but I didn't want to seem paranoid either. So I nodded, grabbed the pizza, and headed out. The motel looked the same. Dark, empty, still. This time I parked a little farther away, walked slowly. The night air pressed in closer than before. I stood in front of the door. No number again. Just chipped paint and silence. I knocked once. The door creaked open. Again. Just a sliver. Like before, the bill slid out across the floor. $10. Same scratchy sound. I didn't touch it. Instead, I backed away, pizza in hand, and turned around. I didn't even make it to the car before my phone buzzed. Same message. Order completed. Good job. Come back safe. I checked the store system the next morning from home. The order history showed 3 identical deliveries to the same address, going back weeks, always late at night, always marked as complete. None of the other drivers had noticed. I asked the cook the next evening if he'd ever delivered to that motel. He shrugged. Not in a while. Place is probably shut down by now. I asked if he'd ever gone to room 9. He paused, thought for a second. Room 9? He said slowly. Nah, man. There's no room 9 at that place. It skips from 8 to 10. I just stared at him. He kept scrubbing the counter like he hadn't said anything strange. That night, I didn't wait for the printer to beep. I went to the office and pulled the past 2 weeks' delivery logs. Same address, same order, same room. I printed them out and compared the receipts. Different names each time, different phone numbers. But the handwriting on the cash received line was always the same. Neat. Almost too neat. All caps. No tilt. I stopped taking deliveries after that. Switched to prep work. Told the manager I was having car trouble. He didn't push it. One of the new drivers, Miguel, took the late night shift. A week later, I asked him if he'd gotten any weird runs. He said no, but he did mention one delivery where the door opened before he knocked. I asked where. He said, that rundown motel by the highway. Weird place. Didn't even see anyone. Just grabbed the money and left. He said it like it was nothing, like it hadn't stayed in his head. But it stayed in mine. The following Friday, I stayed behind after my shift, just to watch the cameras. Around 2:40, the printer beeped. I watched the monitor as Miguel left the store. 30 minutes passed. At 3:10 a.m., the printer beeped again. Another receipt slid out. Same order, same address. But Miguel was still on the road. I checked the system. This new order was marked completed. I looked up. No one had touched the keyboard. No one was near the POS. The receipt sat there, curling slightly at the edges. I didn't touch it. I clocked out, went home, and never went back. A few weeks later, I drove past the motel during the day. It was boarded up. Broken windows. Weed-choked lot. The office door was wide open. No lights. No cars. I parked across the road and walked over just to be sure. There were only 8 rooms. 6 with numbers. 1 burned-out shell. And 1 door with no number at all. I didn't get closer. I just stood there, watching that blank door. Something about it felt aware, like it had been waiting. I got back in my car and drove away. I haven't delivered a pizza since, but every now and then, usually around 2:45 a.m., I get a text. No number, just a message. Order. Order completed. Good job. Come back safe. I never reply. Story number 3. Table for 1. I used to work part-time at a Pizza Hut near the interstate, mostly on weekday evenings. It was one of those older locations, small dining area, outdated booths, dim yellow lighting. We got a lot of highway traffic, people passing through, quick meals, nothing fancy. It was never busy after 9 p.m., which was fine by me. I liked closing shifts. They were quiet, peaceful in a weird way. I'd wipe down tables, refill napkin holders, maybe hum along to whatever was playing on the radio. Time passed, slow, but steady. There was a table in the corner, table 6, back against the window, nearest to the bathrooms. It wasn't special or anything, but every night just before closing, the hostess would quietly flip the chairs on every table, except that one. At first I didn't notice, but after a few weeks I started asking why we left that one booth untouched. My manager, Amanda, brushed it off. Said it was for regulars, though we rarely had any that late. One night around 9:45, a woman came in, alone. She looked to be in her 50s. Long gray coat, neat hair, no bag, no purse. Just walked in, straight to table 6, and sat down. Didn't ask for a menu. Didn't look around. Just folded her hands and stared out the window like she was waiting for something or someone. I walked over and asked if she wanted anything. She turned to me, slowly, almost like the movement took effort. Her eyes were calm, but distant. Just water, she said softly. I brought it over. She didn't touch it. Just nodded once when I set it down. I let her be. We were almost closed anyway. At 10 o'clock, sharp, she stood up and walked out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't drink the water. Just left. Next night she came again. Same time, same booth, same quiet request. And again she left without drinking the water. This went on for about a week. Every night. Same routine. I started expecting her. I'd place a clean glass on the tray and bring it over without asking. She'd nod. I'd nod. Then I'd go back to wiping down tables. She never smiled, never looked tired, just calm and still. One night, after she left, I stayed behind a little longer than usual. Amanda was finishing up the safe count, and I was stacking chairs. I looked over at table 6 and noticed the water glass was completely empty. I blinked. I was sure she hadn't touched it. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd been too distracted. Next night, she didn't come in. Neither did the next. I asked Amanda if she knew the woman. She paused for a second too long. I think she used to work here, she said. Oh, I asked, what happened? Amanda just shrugged. She left. That's all she said. It felt off. That week, every time I passed table 6, I felt watched. Not in an obvious way. More like when you walk into a quiet room and just know someone had been there before you. Like air still clinging to movement. I started avoiding that side of the dining area. Then, 2 nights later, she came back. But something was different. She looked the same. Same coat, same expression. But her hair was damp, clinging to her face like she'd been walking in rain. It hadn't rained that day. She sat at table 6, without saying a word. No nod, no glance. I brought over the water like usual, but she didn't look up. Just sat still, hands folded, staring ahead. I stood there longer than usual. Her eyes weren't empty. They were locked on something, or someone. There was nothing there. I asked quietly, "Are you waiting for someone?" She blinked slowly, then said, "He used to sit across from me." Her voice was almost a whisper, barely there. "Who?" I asked before I could stop myself. But she didn't answer, just kept staring at the empty seat in front of her. The glass of water had fogged on the outside, the way cold drinks do, but I swear I hadn't filled it with ice. At 10 p.m., she stood up and walked out like before. I turned to clear the table. The seat across from where she had been sitting was wet, as if someone had just gotten up from it. Only there hadn't been anyone else. I wiped the seat with a towel and backed away without really understanding why. The next night, I told Amanda I wasn't feeling well and asked if I could leave early. She didn't ask questions, but on my way out, I glanced at the Polaroids taped to the break room fridge. Old staff photos from years ago. People I'd never met. And in the bottom corner of one faded photo from 2001, there she was. Same coat, Same eyes, standing next to a younger man in a Pizza Hut apron, smiling. She looked different then, lighter somehow, but it was definitely her. I stared at the photo for a long time before walking out. That was the last night I saw her. But the table, it still stays empty. No one sits there. We clean it, sure. Blah, no. Takes orders at table 6. The hostesses never seat anyone there. Customers walk right past it like it doesn't exist. And I asked Amanda once, weeks later, if she remembered the woman who used to sit there. She just said, "What woman?" and kept counting inventory. Maybe she didn't hear me, or maybe she didn't want to. A few days ago, we hired a new server. First night, she tried to seat a family at table 6. Amanda stopped her mid-sentence, pulled her aside. I couldn't hear what was said, but the new girl looked confused. Then she nodded and brought the menus to another booth. Later that night, when I passed table 6, I saw something on the seat. A single drop of water, no glass nearby, no spill, just one perfect droplet. I didn't wipe it up, didn't say anything. I just kept walking, like everyone else does. Some things don't need explaining, and some tables are never meant to be for two. Story number 4. Voices in the freezer. I used to work at a Pizza Hut on the night shift. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I liked it more than I should have. I got to be alone most of the time. There was something calming about the smell of baked dough lingering in the air, the quiet shuffle of boxes being folded, the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. Most nights I'd be in the back doing prep or restocking. I wasn't the only one there. There was usually one other guy on shift, but we kept to ourselves. The kitchen had a rhythm. Slice, fold, stack, wipe, over and over again until close. Then one night, the manager asked me to clean the walk-in freezer. I didn't think much of it. The freezer was one of those big industrial types. Metal, door, latch handle, and that familiar rush of cold air that hit your face when you opened it. It was always loud in there. The hum of the compressor, the faint clink of frost breaking off the ceiling now and then. Shelves lined with bags of cheese, frozen dough, and boxed wings. I grabbed some gloves and a scraper and went in. At first, it was routine. Just me in the cold, my breath fogging up in front of me. The air had that stale, metallic chill that clings to your skin. I started scraping the ice buildup off the back wall, a bit of frost here and there, nothing unusual. The light overhead flickered slightly, but it always did that. I worked quietly, focused on getting it done so I could clock out. Then I heard something. Faint, but clear. A whisper. It wasn't words at first, just the shape of a voice, like someone murmuring behind the shelves, just low enough that you couldn't quite make out what they were saying. I turned around. Nothing. Just the stacked boxes, sealed tight. Nothing moved. I waited a second, then told myself it was probably the air vent. Sometimes when the fan kicked on, it made weird noises, or maybe it was my own breath bouncing off the walls. I went back to scraping. Then it came again. This time it was closer. Still soft, still low, but it sounded like a woman, whispering something, one syllable at a time. I stopped working and stepped back, listening. The whisper stopped too. I waited. Nothing. I leaned slightly toward the shelf on the right, where the sound seemed to come from. Then I heard it again, just one word this time. Hey. I backed away without realizing it, gloved hand still holding the scraper. My chest was tight, and my breath felt heavier. I opened the freezer door and stepped out fast. The warmth of the kitchen hit me like a wave. My coworker, Gabe, looked up from the sink. "You good?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just needed a break." He smirked and went back to washing dishes. I didn't go back in that night, but the freezer didn't let it go. Over the next week, I noticed small things. Faint tapping sounds when I walked past, like something knocking softly from the inside. A voice, just barely audible, when I stood near the door too long. Always whispering, always just out of reach. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like I was losing it. Just metal walls and frost. I grabbed the wings and rushed out, heart pounding, barely closing the door behind me. Gabe gave me a weird look when I dropped the box on the counter. I didn't say anything, just walked to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and kept my eyes down the rest of the night. Later, when we were closing, I pulled Amanda, the manager, aside. "Has anything weird ever happened with the freezer?" I asked. She paused, tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I hesitated. "Like sounds, voices." She was quiet for a moment, then gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think everyone hears something eventually," she said. That was all. She didn't elaborate, didn't ask questions. Just walked off. A few nights later, Gabe didn't show up for his shift. Said he was sick. So I was alone in the kitchen after 1 a.m. We were low on dough, which meant I had to go back in. I told myself it was fine. Just get in, get the box, and leave. I opened the freezer, light flickering slightly above. Same hum, same chill. I stepped in, grabbed the first stack of dough boxes, then the door clicked shut. It always did that. It was weighted. But the sound, this time, felt louder, like punctuation. I turned to look, and the light flickered again. But this time it didn't stop. It pulsed, dimmed, then came back, like something was walking beneath it. That's when I noticed the whispering again. Only now, it wasn't soft. It was layered, like more than one voice, men, women, talking over each other in hushed tones, not frantic, not loud, just constant. I pressed my back against the wall. I couldn't move. The voices weren't saying anything I could understand, just syllables and fragments. A wave of sound that filled the freezer, but came from nowhere. Then suddenly it stopped. Silence. No hum. No fan. No compressor. Just stillness. I reached for the handle, but the door wouldn't open. It wasn't stuck. It was locked. From the outside. I banged on it once, twice. My glove muffled the sound. Then, just beyond the door, I heard something. Not a voice this time. Footsteps, slow, unhurried, walking away. I stood there frozen, not from the cold, but from the feeling that something had just decided I was staying. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. Then the compressor kicked back on, and the light steadied. And the door gave way when I tried it again. I stepped out, every inch of me shaking. Amanda was at the register, calm, like nothing happened. She looked at me, then back down at the receipt tape. Didn't say a word. I finished my shift and left without saying anything either. I don't work there anymore. But sometimes, in places where it's cold, like grocery store freezers or walking past a meat locker, I catch a faint whisper, and I never stay long enough to hear what it's saying. Story number 5. He knew my name. I worked the front counter at Pizza Hut for about a year when I was 19. Small town location, the kind with peeling menu boards and sticky floors that never really came clean, no matter how hard you mopped. We didn't get a ton of foot traffic, mostly regulars or bored teenagers passing through. I usually worked evenings, 4 to close, the slow part of the day. I liked that. Less chaos, just me, the kitchen staff, and the soft hum of machines doing their thing. The register beeping, the oven fans whirring, the overhead bulbs flickering just a bit. Comforting sounds once you got used to them. There was one booth near the window where people rarely sat. Not because it was creepy or anything, it just had a weird angle where the sun would hit you straight in the eyes during dinner. I called it the no one wants it seat. I'd sit there on my break sometimes and watch the parking lot while sipping flat soda from a paper cup. One Tuesday, I remember it was slow, rainy, that kind of cold drizzle that made people stay home. I'd cleaned everything early, stacked the boxes, restocked the cheese packets. It was around 8:30 when he walked in. He didn't look odd, just ordinary, middle-aged, jacket zipped up high, no umbrella, wet shoulders. He came straight up to the counter and stood there quietly. "Hi, welcome. For carry-out or dine-in?" I asked. He looked at me for a second, then smiled just slightly. "Dine-in." His voice was calm, smooth, like he was used to speaking slowly and being listened to. I handed him a menu and motioned toward the tables. "Sit wherever you'd like. I'll be right over." He nodded and walked straight to the window booth, the one no one liked. I grabbed my notepad and followed. His jacket was draped neatly over the seat beside him, and his hands were folded on the table like he was waiting for something specific. "What can I get for you?" I asked. He didn't look at the menu. "Just a personal pan. Cheese." "Sure thing. Anything to drink?" He tilted his head. "Do you still have those red cups with the clear lids?" I blinked. Yeah." He smiled again. "Then water's fine." I wrote it down and stepped away. It wasn't until I reached the kitchen that something felt off. I hadn't told him about the cups. Most places use standard drinkware, but ours were old school, the red textured plastic kind with mismatched lids and short straws. Not many people mentioned them, and definitely not new customers, but I let it go. Maybe he'd been here before. I brought him the drink. He thanked me, took one sip, then stared out the window again. Not at anything in particular, just into the rain, like it reminded him of something. He didn't touch the menu again, just sat quietly. His pizza came out fast. I set it in front of him, and he nodded without looking at me. Back behind the counter, I watched him eat slowly, neatly, the kind of deliberate movements that made time feel slower around him. Then he said something. I didn't hear it clearly, just a low murmur. I thought he might be talking to me, so I walked over. "Sorry, did you say something?" He looked up, surprised, or pretending to be. "No," he said, just where thinking out loud. I nodded and turned to go. Then he said it. "Emma." I stopped. I turned back. "What?" He repeated it. "Emma. That's your name, right?" I didn't answer right away. My name tag was missing that day. I remembered because I'd left it in my bag and made a joke about it to Amanda earlier. And even if I had it on, I went to her M at work. No one ever called me Emma, not even customers. I forced a smile. "Yeah, that's right." He nodded. "Thought so." I walked away, heart doing this slow, uncomfortable thud against my ribs. Maybe he heard Amanda say it earlier. Maybe he saw it on a receipt. I went through every explanation I could find, but none of them made sense. When I checked again, 10 minutes later, The booth was empty. The plate was clean. Fork placed across the plate just so. But here's the weird part. He hadn't paid. No cash, no card, no receipt in the system, no order under his name. I even asked Amanda later if she'd rung him up by chance. She looked confused. What guy? The one who sat by the window, ordered a cheese pan. I didn't see anyone. I didn't push it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the way he said my name. Calm. Like it wasn't new to him. Like he was just remembering. The next afternoon I came in early and checked the security footage. There was nothing at 8:30 p.m. No one walked in. No one sat in the booth. No order was placed. The tape showed me walking to the table, standing there, talking to no one, then carrying a drink, then a plate, then clearing it. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Amanda came in behind me. Everything okay? I turned the monitor away. Yeah, I lied. Just checking the timestamp on a delivery. She nodded and walked off. The next few nights, I felt different in the store, like the quiet had changed, like it was listening. Whenever the front door opened, my heart jumped. I kept looking for that wet jacket, that small smile, those eyes that somehow knew my name before I said a word, but he never came back. Then, maybe a week later, I found something. I was cleaning the lobby, after close, wiping down tables, sweeping crumbs. I got to the window booth and noticed something wedged between the seat and the wall. A photo, small, old. It was a Polaroid, faded. Two people, probably in their 20s, sitting in that exact booth, smiling. The girl looked like me. Not just similar, not just familiar, like me. Same hair, same eyes, same crooked smile I'd always hated in photos. The guy sitting across from her was wearing a jacket. I flipped the photo over. Nothing written, no date, no names, just blank. I put it in my pocket. Didn't tell anyone. Still haven't. It's in my drawer at home. I don't look at it much, but I keep it. I don't know why. Sometimes, when it rains and the windows fog up at work, I find myself glancing at that booth, half expecting to see him there, waiting, hands folded. And every so often someone will come in late and ask, "Is Emma here?" I never say yes. Not anymore. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the other videos on your screen. I'd love to hear your own horror experiences in the comments below. Stay safe out there.